It all started with the knock on the door of my pad in Hereford on the 4th of April 1982. It was a Sunday evening. The signature tune from Dallas blared out from the TV set in the living room as I made my way into the small hallway of our married quarter to answer the unexpected caller. Phil Curas, the troop sergeant of Mountain Troop, stood on the doorstep. "All right, Phil. What's up?" Phil and his family lived a few doors down on the pad's patch of tight-packed two-up, two-down houses, but something in his manner told me it wasn't a social call. "Sorry to bother you on a Sunday, mate. A Scale A has been called for the squadron, and everyone needs to be in camp for a briefing at 1000 hours tomorrow morning." "What's up?" I repeated. "I don't know," he replied, "but it's got to be something big, as the boys from G Squadron have been called in too." 34 years old, the quietly spoken, sandy-haired Midlander was a former medic from the Army's Medical Corps. Phil was also a decorated Special Forces veteran, and as the troop staffy of Mountain Troop, he ran the small sub-unit of 16 men with something of a bedside manner, which oozed confidence and a soothing balm of authority. But it didn't mean that he knew what the brief was about. His job was to make sure that we were there for it. The absence of any more information didn't concern me overly. I had been in 22 SAS for just over 2 years, and the regiment was always on permanent standby to provide a response to any brewing crisis. It usually came to nothing. We were used to being stood up at short notice, only to be stood down again just as quickly. However, Liz took a very different view. "What did Phil want?" she asked, with a trace of acid suspicion in her voice, as I shut the door and walked back into the living room. I told her about the briefing. "And of course, you will be going in." I resisted the temptation to say, "Of course I am fucking going in. I'm in the fucking SAS." I knew it wouldn't help the situation. Sensing my indignation, she shot me a murderous look, pushing herself back hard into the sofa and throwing her arms tightly across her body. Oh shit. Here we go again, I thought. Liz turned up the volume on the TV to signal the beginning of the silent treatment. J.R. Ewing was getting a slice from Sue Ellen Ewing on the box, and I felt for the poor bugger. Had we been watching the news that night, however, we might have had an inkling that events taking place thousands of miles away were about to impact on us. Ask any soldier about loyalty, and they will speak of their regiment in an ascending order of priority, starting with its smallest constituent part. In my case, fidelity began with the 16-odd men of Mountain Troop. It then ran to D Squadron, formed of us and 3 other troops, before ending with the regiment and its 4 other similarly formed Sabre squadrons. This was my military family, but my civilian wife Liz had a distinctly different take on things. Liz was a nurse, and we had met while I was on a medical attachment with the A&E department of a large London hospital. We had married just before the end of December in 1981. She had hardly seen me since. In the first week of January, the troop deployed with the rest of D Squadron on a 2-month exercise in Kenya, which was followed, almost immediately, by 2 weeks of troop training in the Bavarian Alps. I had just got back from Germany and been given a week's leave, so it was perhaps not unsurprising that me going into work the next day promoted some harsh words of disappointment, hurt, and then silence. I could hardly blame her. Liz was discovering that the reality of married life was somewhat different from what she had expected. Home and family are a secondary commitment in the regiment, and it takes a special kind of woman to maintain a lasting relationship with an SAS soldier. The next morning, I left a tense atmosphere at home behind and made the short walk into the camp. The barracks had been the home to the regiment since 1960, after the SAS had been reformed as a regular unit in response to the Malayan emergency. The camp had recently been rebuilt as a new red brick construct of 2-story buildings to accommodate our Special Forces role and renamed as Sterling Lines. It included an aquatic centre, complete with a helicopter mock-up for fast roping into the pool, and an artificial beach to practice seaborne covert insertion techniques using collapsible Klepper canoes and inflatable Gemini boats.